that, then what you need is this app called Explain Everything. Explain Everything can open a Keynote, it can open a PowerPoint that exists that you've already made, and then you annotate on each slide as you go. So I was just starting working with Explain Everything on a couple of different projects, and then I was having some glitches with Explain Everything, so I deleted it and reinstalled it, and so far I'm only to here. I'm going to discard that. But basically you can import a deal, and as you write on each slide, it records what you do. So there's slide number 1, slide number 2, slide number 3. I haven't gone very far on where I wanted to go with this presentation. But if I hit record, I'm going to choose a pencil. I can write, change colors while I'm doing this. I'm going to hit pause. If I go back and push play, watch what happens. I'm going to choose a pencil. I can write, change colors while I'm doing this. I'm going to hit pause. So basically, you can record yourself interacting with slides, with your classes, with your students, whatever you brought in from the Keynote, whatever you brought into PowerPoint. You can put a video in there and write over what's going on in the video at certain times. It's a great app. It's like $4.99, and it's game-changing. But at the same time, I don't necessarily want that in my presentation, so I'll delete that later. But that I'm working on. So I'm going to close that. Explain Everything. It's another presentation tool, totally worth looking at. iMovie. iMovie changes the game. You no longer have to make a kid do a stodgy written report. Go make me a video of it instead. Seriously. And it's so easy to use. How many of you have used iMovie? And the fun things you can do, and every version of iMovie gets better and better and better with more tools that you can do. So all sorts of crazy things you can do with iMovie. Notability. I used to teach high school up until last year, and now I'm teaching middle school. We were not an iPad one-to-one school where I was, but I would have a number of kids that would actually buy iPads because they saw me using mine for the last 3 years. Since 2010, I've had an iPad that I use daily as my main device at school. So I had about 20 kids out of 130 in the program that buy their own iPads because I had my own iPad. Well, what they would do is when they'd go off to college, they'd look at me and say, you know what, I've got to sell my iPad because I need a MacBook to take notes with in class. And I go, okay, you do what you need to do. But when I was in college, I always preferred taking handwritten notes. I don't know about you guys, because I always found that I needed to draw things, especially as a music teacher. I knew that I could never create a finale file fast enough to match what the teacher was drawing on the board in theory class or whatever. So I always needed to draw. Well, Notability lets me do that. I can actually take those notes in Notability. There's a bunch of other tools with Notability, and there's a couple other programs like it. But Notability is a pretty wonderful program that lets you take notes. As a side note, I've had, I take notes today, but you can import a staff and you can do all sorts of things, and you go, well, how do you get that fine writing? Well, there's this little zoom-in feature that you can use that allows you to write in this lower box with great detail. And again, I'm kind of, the smaller you make the box, the more detail you can go. Again, it'd be nice if the recognition was right there, but a great way to take notes on the fly. So I just got an email from another former student from last year who wrote back and said, actually, I have a teacher who bans computers from their class, but he's letting me use my iPad. So I would have much preferred to have that. By the way, then you can save your notes digitally. You never have to try to find what did I do with that one through binder, what happened to that page ripped out. But anyway, and kids are the same way. What's the number one problem we see with kids? They don't know how to organize themselves. You know what I mean? Whether it's elementary school, high school kids, college kids, right? How do you organize your life? Later on, I'll show you a couple other apps that we can get into with that. So that's the next one. All right, double tap, get in, close out of Notability, go back to our Keynote. All right, how about ProTuber? Now, this is a moving target. Every now and then, Apple Apple allows in an app that allows you to save YouTube files to your camera file. And then Apple finds out that that ability is in there, and then they remove it or force it to change its code. So this is always changing. ProTuber lets you save video files. So if I want to embed that in a keynote, I want to put a video in, I can. So if I go to my photo roll, I can show you that I've saved some videos. Like if you guys haven't seen this one's absolutely crazy. Rachel Gilmore at the Met. See if she pops through here in a second. Hopefully she does. Waiting for her to play. Here we go. She got called in at the last minute to start singing at the Met, and she's doing the doll aria. Waiting to see if we get it. It's not working. It's only calling.
So
good. Anyway, if you haven't seen it, it's definitely worth seeing. But I'm getting AirPlay is playing on null, which is crazy. It's kind of like it's blocking. Oh, got a server with air server problem. Anyway, if I do this in my own classroom, it works. And I can play a video for students that's my video of choice. I wonder if one of my other videos is let's see here. Any luck? All right. Well, let's just take it that. This is my first experience with Air Server, by the way. I usually use an app called Reflector on my computer to use, and that does work, but that is not working. Anyway, ProTuber allows me to download that video, and I can then use it for a presentation later. It's good to know that that's not working, so you can ask that later. By the way, if you ever get smartboard trained, they'll tell you to say when you run into a glitch, and say, well, that was an unexpected technical difficulty. So that was an unexpected technical difficulty. All right, Smart Notebook. What do you do? Those of you who were in my earlier session heard me kind of rant against smartboards. I'm not a fan anymore. I was a smartboard trained person. What do you do though if you've got tons and tons and tons of content already in Smart? Well, they make an app. And they're, by the way, smart technologies, they're smart. No pun intended. They can see their handwriting is on the wall for the traditional smartboard with a projector. They see that. They're moving towards, right now, developing interactive large screens, like touch screens. They see it. They know that's where they're going. They're not dumb. But they're still selling a lot of smartboards because of, and this is the truth, there was one major research done by a researcher known as Morzano, is his last name, and he wrote one article, one review, which was actually paid for by Promethean, that said smartboards show improvement in grades. So every principal, when they see an article like that, they jump on it because they all want higher grades. That's what they do. So huge. That one study has bought more smartboards and more Promethean boards than anyone. Promethean still hasn't done this, but Smart has this. So if you create a Smart notebook material, you can actually pull it into your iPad and still use it. That's a real good benefit. So side note, you can always take a Smart notebook presentation off of a Smart deal, and if you're on a PC, you can save it as a PowerPoint and then import it into whatever, Keynote, you name it, whatever. Mac, for some reason, doesn't do that. Mac, you can export as a PDF, but not as a PowerPoint. You have no idea, but that's just one of the deals. Let's say you have a situation where you want to control a computer with your iPad. Not project your iPad to your computer, but you want to actually control the computer with your iPad. There's a couple apps that allow for this. One is called Splashtop. So literally, if you run Splashtop and you have a little program running on your PC or your Mac, you can actually control it. So you can open files, you can do whatever. And if you pay an extra fee, you can even do it from a distance. So for example, you could have your computer on at home and then be controlling your computer at home with Splashtop. Another app that's just like that is Docery. Same deal. Again, paid services. I don't have much use for that, but some people do. Occasionally, I'll come to this link later, you find a good idea. There's a bunch of poster making apps. So you want to make posters for your room and you have access to a color printer or a larger color printer in your school, you can make some custom posters for your school. So Poster, one of those poster apps. Here's a great one. Let's say you want to show what's on your iPad screen, but you want to put it in an iPad frame. You know what I mean? Maybe for a poster or something. Well, if you want to take a picture of your iPad screen, it's real easy. It's home button power, right? That's how you do it. Home button power takes a screenshot. Well, in this app, you can open that screenshot and then put it around a frame. So you can put it around an iPad mini, you can put it around an iPad, so then it exports that image and you have an image of your screen on an iPad. Sounds like a strange thing, but occasionally you might want that. If you're teaching like a one-to-one school with iPads, or you want to teach kids how to do it, you might want the reference point of what the iPad looks like. It's really powerful. It's a nice app. Here's a crazy one, attendance too. Now, most schools have a computer-based attendance system. So you might just say, why not just do attendance on that? Well, here's the deal. What happens if you have a 60-person choir? Have you ever gone through and tried to do attendance in a 60-person choir? It takes forever because, number one, they're not sitting in the right spot, they're moving around, blah, blah, blah. The other catch with that, too, is you can't have a student do it officially as a teacher, because if you do, you're actually breaking, there's lots of issues of students being accountable for others. You can't do it. So officially the teacher is supposed to do it. Now there are teachers that have students do it, yes, but if that ever got through to court of law, like a kid was absent from the class and a student could mark them present and it wasn't the teacher that did it, and the teacher reported that as being fact, there could be a lot of trouble. So, attendance 2, what do I do with that? Well, attendance 2 in itself isn't all the right home about, but it has a cool feature where if you put in your list of students, it'll generate a QR code for each kid. And then you can either print those out on a sheet and stick it on their folder, or you can, if you're in a one-to-one like I am, you can actually share that image of their QR code. And then as they walk into the room, the app scans the student. And then they go sit down. And it just makes attendance and ease. I've even done it on tour, where I took kids on tour, and I gave each kid a sticker, and they could take a picture of it, and either have it, by the way, it reads well off of smartphones too, but like they take a picture of it, but they could stick it on the back of something, and then every time they walked on the bus, they scanned in. So every kid was responsible for their own attendance. I'm doing this with my 6th through 8th graders. It's working great. It worked great at the high school level. It takes them a little while to figure it out, but once they do, it's a huge time saver. And by the way, I don't know if you've ever had this, and if you've ever taught in ensemble, but one of the most annoying things ever is when you're, like, you've done warm-ups or whatever, and you go to your first piece, and you get the kid that walks up and goes to the folder stand because they didn't get their folder when they walked in the room. At that point, you just want to hurt them when they do that. And you're like, dude, what are you doing? I forgot my folder. Well, if their sticker or scanning is on their folder, they have to grab it when they walk in the room. So it takes care of 2 problems in one shot. It's amazing for an app. It's a very little deal. Class Dojo I talked about earlier, it's a classroom management tool where if you put in a list of your students, it makes every student into a little monster, which is both, it's true on several levels as you go. But what's really fun is that kids can log in and modify their monster. If you give them a code, parents can log in, and you can track students based on the parameters you set. So if you're worried about whether or not a kid is sitting in their seat, has their pencil, whatever, you can actually make positive and negative reinforcement tools to choose for that. And then as students do it right or wrong, you can pull up the app, mark them, whatever, and then at the end of the hour or whatever day, it will have a continual tracking of how that student is done in class. So you can have a tool, particularly if you have a kid that's not kind of on task. Here's another one, Too Noisy. It's an app that all it is basically it's a decibel meter. But as kids are noisy, it goes up, 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 and as they're quiet, it goes down, 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 down. So if you have like we are going to have in our middle school, we have sustained reading days that are assigned, where you literally, they call it deer days, drop everything and read. So basically you just shoot that day of rehearsal and everybody reads in your class for that day. Well, you put that up and you're just like, you know, it'll be silent. It's a real good reinforcement for that. Another teacher, Chris Sapersky, recommended this one, just a seating chart app. A seating chart app of keeping track of kids in seating charts. I kind of like this app. I've been using it more and more, called Idosio. And Idosio will do a bunch of things. It will do grading. It'll do seating charts. Let it pop up here. So like if I have this class of students, I can see their seating chart. I can even put a picture in for each student. And if I have assignments created, like I'm going to track participation. Participation is a fancy word in reverse of behavior. You can't grade behavior, but you can grade participation. So if a kid isn't participating properly, in other words, misbehaving, you can grade them on that, based on the fact that they're not participating appropriately. But you can't grade them on behavior. You with me so far? it's one of those teacher speak things you need to know when you go out in the real world.